The train station at Red Creek was smaller than she had imagined. Just a wooden platform, a water pump, and a faded sign swinging in the dry wind. Clara Bennett stepped down from the carriage, clutching her single suitcase. Her gloved hands trembling despite the heat. She had crossed 3 states to become a mail-order bride to a man she had never met. Guided only by brief letters written in steady, careful handwriting, she spotted him immediately. He stood apart from the others, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dust-colored hat pulled low over eyes that had seen too much silence. Beside him stood a small boy of about 8, thin but sturdy, with curious gray eyes and hair the color of wheat. The cowboy removed his hat politely. "Miss Bennett?" Clara swallowed. "Yes, sir. I'm Thomas Hale, and this here is my son Eli." Eli didn't speak. He simply studied her as if deciding something important. The wagon ride to the ranch was long and quiet. The land stretched endlessly, golden and lonely beneath a pale sky. Clara's heart pounded with each passing mile. She had imagined conversation, maybe even a shy smile. Instead, Thomas kept his eyes on the reins, speaking only when necessary. The ranch house stood solid and weathered, surrounded by fences and grazing cattle. It wasn't grand, but it was sturdy. Safe. Or at least it looked that way. Inside, Clara set her suitcase down near the door. The silence pressed against her ribs. She had expected to feel relief upon arrival, but doubt crept in instead. Thomas cleared his throat. "You must be tired. Supper's simple tonight. I ain't much of a cook." Clara forced a faint smile. "I can cook." Eli finally spoke, his small voice firm. "Pa burns the biscuits." Thomas gave him a half smile. It was the first sign of warmth Clara had seen. That evening, Clara prepared stew with what little she found in the pantry. Her hands worked automatically, but her thoughts raced. What if this was a mistake? What if she didn't belong here? What if she couldn't fill the space left behind by the boy's mother? At supper, Eli ate quietly but watched her with open curiosity. Thomas thanked her for the meal, his voice low and sincere. Later, when the dishes were washed and the lantern light flickered against the walls, Clara stood near the doorway. The weight of the decision she had made pressed heavily upon her. She turned to Thomas, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can send me back." Thomas stiffened. "What? If this isn't what you expected, if I'm not suitable, I won't hold it against you." Silence filled the room. Thomas looked at Eli, who had frozen in place. Then the cowboy stepped forward, his voice steady, but carrying something deeper than she had heard before. "My son picked you." Clara blinked. "Excuse me?" Thomas nodded toward Eli. "When your letter came with that small pressed flower tucked inside, I didn't notice it at first. But Eli did. He said any woman who takes time to press a flower for folks she ain't." Clara didn't sleep much that night. The wind brushed against the windows. Carrying the scent of dry grass and distant cattle, she lay awake in the small guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying Thomas's words in her mind. "My son picked you." No one had ever chosen her before, not truly. In the city, she had been the quiet seamstress in the corner shop. After her parents passed, she became invisible to most of the world. The idea that a child she had never met saw something in her. It unsettled and warmed her all at once. The next morning began before sunrise. Clara found Thomas already outside mending a fence. Eli was feeding the chickens with serious determination. She hesitated, then stepped into the yard. "Morning," she said softly. Thomas tipped his hat. "Morning." Eli ran toward her, holding out an egg triumphantly. "Look, not cracked this time." Clara smiled, genuine this time. "That's impressive." He beamed. Over the next few days, Clara slowly found her place. She scrubbed floors, aired out curtains, and planted small wildflowers near the porch. The house began to look less like a place of survival and more like a home. But the ranch was not without its hardships. On the 4th day, a storm rolled in unexpectedly. Fierce winds tore across the plains and the cattle grew restless. Thomas rushed out to secure the barn doors, but one hinge snapped loose. Without thinking, Clara grabbed a lantern and followed. "Stay inside," Thomas shouted over the wind. "I can hold the light," she shouted back. Rain lashed against her face, soaking her dress. But she stood firm while Thomas hammered the hinge back into place. Eli watched from the doorway, worry etched across his small face. When they finally returned inside, drenched and breathless, Thomas looked at her differently. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "Yes, I did," Clara replied. "This is my home too, if you'll have me." The words hung between them. Thomas stepped closer, rain still dripping from his hat. His voice was softer than she had ever heard it. I ain't good with fancy speeches, and I can't promise easy days, but I can promise honesty and loyalty. Clara met his eyes. The loneliness she had seen there at the train station was still present, but now it was mixed with something else, hope. Eli tugged at Clara's sleeve. You're staying, right? She knelt to his level, brushing damp hair from his forehead. If you'll have me. He threw his arms around her without hesitation. Thomas watched them, his jaw tightening as if holding back emotion. After a moment he spoke. You won't be sent back, Clara, not now. Not ever. And for the first time since stepping off that train, Clara felt the fear inside her begin to fade. The West was still vast and uncertain. The work would be hard. The winters would be colder than she imagined. But in a small ranch house beneath an endless sky, a lonely cowboy, a hopeful boy, and a brave young woman began